Hey, go ahead.
Okay. Our mission, Helping Parents Heal, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background. Attendance today at this meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. However, these Zoom meetings are very helpful to parents all around the world, and they are posted on YouTube so that affiliate members who are not able to attend this meeting live can also watch. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone. And once again, welcome, Peter. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Irene.
We're thrilled, and we're so happy to have you here. And I'm just going to read a little bit about Peter because he has such an interesting bio. He's a two-time near-death experiencer. Reverend Peter Baldwin Panagore, MDiv, is the international Audible best-selling author of Heaven is Beautiful, How Dying Taught Me That Death is Just the Beginning. His Maine Best Seller, 2 Minutes for God, Quick Fixes for the Spirit, is a 365-day-a-year collection of his inspirational stories drawn from among the 1,700 he wrote for TV. For 15 years, Peter ran, wrote, and hosted First Radio Parish Church of America, founded in 1926 on AM and broadcasting daily TV and FM. From 1986 until 2003, Peter served churches and coastal communities in Maine as an ordained clergyperson. He holds a BA in English from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst and a Master of Divinity from Yale University with focus in the Classics of Western Mysticism. These days, Peter runs Not Church, No Doctrine, No Dogma, No BS, an exploration of mysticism and spirituality on his YouTube channel, live every Sunday morning, and teaches centering prayer. He brings his 40 years as a spiritual counselor specializing in mysticism and near-death experience to a worldwide client base. In the past 2 years, Peter has been writing 2 more books, both of which are preparing for publication. Peter is an internationally known speaker and storyteller who has appeared on 100 shows, both large and small, including Fox and Friends, Coast to Coast AM, and Canada's Drew Marshall Show. Peter is a yogi, and he's been a meditator for over 40 years. You can learn more about him at www.peterpanagore.love. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Peter Panagore. So Peter, could you tell us a little bit more about no Doctrine, No Dogma, No BS? That would be wonderful if possible before we get started. Let's see. Is he muted? Did someone mute him?
I don't see him.
I wonder.
He got kicked out. Here he is. He got kicked out. He's coming back in. I don't know what happened.
Poor guy. Okay.
He missed his bio, maybe.
I guess he probably didn't want to hear it again. So, okay. Do you see him yet? We need to make sure that we.
I was embarrassed. I was just embarrassed, and I'm here. No, it was totally my fault. I was shutting down. I was like, oh God, I can't listen. And so I started shutting off things in my computer, and I shut off the wrong thing.
Okay, well, anyway, I was just asking if you could talk about no dogma, no doctrine, no BS. Could you tell us about that?
I sure can. Yeah, so I I'm a kind of an outlier in the church. I was in the church because I was hiding out in the church as a mystic. No one else was going to, um, well, pay me to pray and study. And so I spent all my time in the church studying. I read wide and far in global literature. And as I did this, I thought to myself, you know, Jesus sounds like a near-death experiencer to me. And when I read what he says, it sounds like all these mystics that I read from all over the world. He sounds like me. So what went wrong? What, how did all this accumulation of doctrine and dogma and power and greed get wrapped around his stuff? And so I decided to try Not Church. And so Not Church is basically an exploration of the scriptures, primarily the sayings of Jesus and some Paul, but not just Jesus. I bring in lots of other stuff as well. It's an exploration of metaphor, symbolism, simile, allegory, myth, and negative thinking, negative language. And I try to deconstruct. I basically read what Jesus says and I see light in it, and I try to figure out how to explain what I hear from him, because I think that Jesus was what a code switcher. Did you ever hear of code switching? Code switching is, in where I live in Maine, people code switch in French because there's a lot of Quebecois in northern Maine. And so people speak in French and English at the same time. And they'll use a phrase in French, and then they'll use a phrase in English, and they'll use the same syntax, correct syntax. French, it's called, you know, Franglish, Spanglish. I think Jesus was a code switcher. And I think that he was, like most mystics, like all mystics, he was code switching between Aramaic and metaphor. And that totally went over the heads of like everybody. And so Not Church Sundays, No Doctrine, No Dogma is about that. And I like also particularly some, like the Gospel of Thomas. I'm a fan of some of the non-canonical works as well. So that's what that is.
So are you going to let us know, so I can put this onto this meeting, exactly how to join you on Sunday? Is that
Oh, sure. It's
okay?
it's my YouTube channel, and it's Peter Panagore. That's my YouTube channel. And I am, other than my dad, I'm the only Peter Panagore on Earth.
Sounds good.
So I'm pretty easy to find.
Easy to
Um,
find. Okay.
um, that's how you find me. And it's Sunday mornings, Eastern Time, 10 a.m., and it's recorded. And so you get to view it later if you want to. And there's a chat. We do it live. I do it live because I like live and I like live interaction. And so there's a live chat and we have conversations. And one of the reasons why I wanted to start this, I have a wider purpose in this, is that I think that there are mystics everywhere. I think many people have mystical experiences, and I either don't know it, or because they think that it was maybe a moment of craziness, or they know it and don't talk about it because it's taboo. And so I'm trying to create a space, not just for NDEers. There are a few NDEers who come, but it's really for anyone who's had a direct divine experience that had some, they call it a spiritual transformative experience. The old word for that is mysticism. Mysticism isn't, um, it's ancient, and it's inside you, and it's the practice. It's primarily the practice of contemplation and the direct connection of the temple of your own sacred heart directly to the divine, which includes you, who you are. And it's kind of it's not kind of, it's the discovery of your higher self is yourself, and that your higher self is connected to the Holy of Holies. And when you connect to that direct place, and this is what I've spent my life on. So what happened after my near-death experience? I'll come back to this in a second. Let me tell you what happened. So after my near-death experience, I came back, I didn't have any belief. And if you weren't here a couple weeks ago, I died ice climbing. I went to a place of non-being. I had an encounter of oneness of being with the unitive presence of all there is in filling me with truth, knowledge, understanding, wisdom, awe, healing, wholeness, wellness of being, perfection, beauty, paradise, adoration, and more. There was more to it than that, but that's the and compassion. Um, that left me a very different person, and I practiced all these things that I'll talk about in a few minutes in between 1980 and 2015 when I died again. And so in 2015, which is when my book came out, when Amazon released it a month early, and I was in Maine Medical Center in Portland, Maine, with a stent in my heart, with damage to my heart, having died the day before in the ambulance on the way down. And so my family has a congenital thing. My grandfather, he died on my first birthday after playing with me of this heart blockage. And then my dad in 87 died of this, or would have died, I'm sorry, was dying of this when they sent a helicopter and life flighted him to Worcester Maine Medical Center, Worcester, UMass, a hospital in Worcester, Massachusetts. And they injected him with a decoagulant and saved his life. And my sister, who I lost, who vanished from my family when I was younger, she died of this. And so it's a family thing. And so I kept purposefully fit. And so I ran 5K the day before this, and I was in a yoga class with 25 other students. A class I've been practicing yoga since 1980 after my near-death experience, and interior yoga. And so I go to this yoga class late, and because the teacher is a friend of mine, I live in a small town, it's a summer resort community, and it's filled with summer people, and there's no room for me. So she lets me set up in the door jamb. So I'm, in half in the room and half in the hallway, and I'm in downward dog, and they're into hot yoga now. And one of the side effects of my near death experience in the practice of the yoga form that I Kriya yoga, like an interior yoga that I practice, is it raises my prana very hot. So I get radiant heat all through me. And so I'm not a big fan of hot yoga because I get hot anyway. So she had the temperature cranked up, and I'm in downward dog, and I'm like, God, why am I so hot so fast? And I'm sweating and I don't feel good suddenly. And I had just begun. And so I lay down on my mat and I close my eyes and I lay there, and she's, leading upward dog and all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, God, my heart hurts. What? I'm sweating profusely. Ah, I'm having a heart attack. I had been I was a national ski patrol when I died the first time, and later in my life, when I lived on an island off the coast of Maine and was this pastor in this really remote place, I was in the ambulance corps. I was an ambulance attendant, and so I diagnosed myself, and I thought to myself, I could die here in the doorway. Well, that's no good. So I got up and I went outside. It's a one-story building, and I sat in an Adirondack chair, and I thought, oh, hi, I'm uncomfortable. I don't feel good at all. So I lay down on the grass. There's dew and there's shadow of the building, and it's the morning, and I'm lying there, and my heart starts to hurt more and more and more. And I think to myself, today's my day. Today I get to go home. And so after my near death experience, my first one, as I dove into my prayer life, then it became the focus of my life. The divine became the focus of my life. And as I dove inside of this, I also prayed every single day to take me home. So God, take me home. Today's a good day to die. Let me go home today. Is my job done? Can I get out of here? Whatever the prayer was, it was always get me out of here. And I'm lying there, and I think to myself, and it's a beautiful morning, and I'm thinking, I am gonna die here, and they're all gonna come outside. they're gonna be another 45 minutes to an hour in there, and they're gonna find me dead out here. And I thought, I'm ready to go. I have never been afraid of death since the day I died. I was terrified of dying the night before. Terrified. Trauma. Left me with post-traumatic stress that I finally figured out how to deal with in 2016. Every time I told my story, I cried. I'm not crying now. I cried once I started telling my story. All I did was cry because it hurt every single time I told it. And so, but I never was afraid of dying. And I told my wife this a whole bunch of times, a lot, over our marriage. And that as soon as I had a chance to go, a legit chance to go, not take my own life, I'm out of here. And I thought, I get to go home today. Who knew it was today? And I was lying there and I thought, my daughter had just, her husband, she married this guy 3 years before, just before he went to Afghanistan. And terrible, terrible things happened to him over there. And he came back a broken fellow. And they had a baby, a new baby. And she had to leave. And she did. And she had just left him like the month before. And I'm like, I can't leave her alone with this. So I tried to sit up and I couldn't get up. And I thought, because I thought, I'll get to my car. I'll at least go to the urgent care center and, try to survive. But I couldn't sit up. And so I lay back down again. I was like, oh, all right, this really hurts. And so I dove inside my meditation. And so one of the things that meditation can do, among lots of other things, spiritual things and biological things, is you can rise above your pain if you focus your mind and your breath on your pain. I see somebody, Amber, shaking her head, because this is an easy thing to do. It's not magic and it doesn't take much skill. You can learn it in a couple of weeks. All you need is to sit in a very uncomfortable position and look at the pain in your body with your breath and your mind. And what happens is you rise above the pain. It still hurts, but you can't feel it anymore until you stop paying attention. The moment you stop paying attention, the pain comes back full force. So I thought, I'm just going to lie here and meditate until I go. And suddenly I hear this voice, Peter, Peter, are you okay? And it's the teacher. And I'm like, no, Romy, I'm not okay. I'm dying. She said, what? I said, yeah, I'm having a heart attack right here, right now. She's like, no way, you can't be having a heart attack. Like fit guy. And I'm like, no, Romy, I am. She said, should I call the ambulance? I said, no, don't call the ambulance. They're too far away. If you're going to do anything, get my friend in there to come out here and drive me to the urgent care center. So Michelle comes out and I convince her that I'm having a heart attack and the ambulance will take too long because I really think that I should try to live even though I don't want to. I should at least try. And so I get over to the urgent care center. The doc says to me, are you sure you're having a heart attack? Like, you? And I'm like, yep, I'm having a heart attack. So they take me in and they look and I've got 100% blockage in my widowmaker. And now it's 45 minutes or so into my cardiac event. And you only get an hour, the golden hour for recovery. And so they do this X-ray. They see this clot, or they give me an MRI. I can't remember which one it was, but they see the clot and they shoot me up with a decoagulant that could kill me. He says, could kill you, could have a stroke, massive stroke. Tells me all the bad things, but it'll give you a trickle through. It gave me a trickle through my artery, and he said, do you want to take morphine? Going to give you some morphine for the pain because I'm meditating the whole time. And I'm like, no, can't take any morphine. Morphine makes me sick. Opiates make me sick. I'll be vomiting and having a heart attack in the back of the ambulance. And I live an hour and a half from the catheterization lab. So I live, and it's because I live in Maine and it's summertime and it's August and the roads are crowded and everybody's here. And so it usually, it could be an hour and 15, but not in the summertime. And so they load me, they put me in the gurney and they wheel me out. And as I go out, my son shows up. He's in his mid-20s and he leans in, grabs my hand, looks me in the eyes with these incredibly pained eyes and says, "I love you, Dad. I love you." And I, squeeze his hand and I look him in the eye and I say the same. And my wife's there and I look up at her and she's got this look on her face like, "I know what you're thinking, Peter." And I'm like, "Yeah." I wink, I smile, I say to myself, she's gonna be fine. She knows about me. She knows that my near-death experience made me have only one love in my life. I love lots of people, but I am my beloved is the divine. And I didn't choose that. That's happened to me. And I can't shut this thing off and if I try to shut it off, when I try to get in the way of it, my life goes to hell. And when I nurture it, even when things are bad, they're good. And so I say goodbye to her and I get in the ambulance and off I go. And I meditate on the way down. And like I said, it's an hour and a half and I'm on the highway somewhere on the way down there, sirens blaring. And because when you meditate, you hear everything. And one of the things about you practice in meditation is not grasping to your thoughts as they go by. A good way to practice that is meditate in a place where there's noise and don't grasp the noise. Don't listen to the sound and let it go by. And so I've done a lot of public meditation, close my eyes in public and meditate. Nobody knows that's what I'm doing, but that's what I'm doing. And so I'm in the ambulance and I'm meditating because the pain is pretty intense. And I hear the paramedics say, "We're losing him." And that I grasped that onto that. And I opened my eyes and I looked up at her. And she's at the radio and she's right over my face and she's looking at me. And I look and I see fear in her face, like this guy's gonna die on me. And game face goes on and I close my eyes after her face goes on. And I close my eyes because I'm in a lot of pain. And I close my eyes to go back into my meditation. I think I got to get back in meditation. This hurts too much. It's like having an elephant standing on my chest or a big, huge boulder, one huge boulder, or like, yeah, something awful. And when I close my eyes to go back inside, I don't go back inside. I close my eyes and I'm outside. I'm outside my body. I'm in this dark tunnel. And and I hear my angel, who I know, comes toward down to me, this intelligent, powerful, loving being that's speaking language of my heart, just the language of welcome and love. "Come to us. We wait for you. It's your time. Come now. We've been waiting for you. We've been waiting." And I go. I like, I'm out of here. And we touch and it starts to carry me up. And I think to myself, I know what's going on this time. I'm not confused about my circumstances this time. And so I think I'm just going to double check. So I turn my consciousness away from the divine presence and I look back inside my life. I don't go back in my body. I look from above inside my life and I see my wife and I'm like, "Oh, she's going to be fine without me. She knows this about me. She's going to hurt, but it's not, she doesn't need me. She might want me, but she doesn't need me." And then I look at my son and I think, he needs me. He's not ready for me to go yet. He's scared. And then I think of my daughter and her baby, the brand new baby, and I think, who's going to protect them? Who's going to be the father for this kid? Because the father can't be the father. And I see her life with me and without me. And I look back up at the angel who had receded, and I just turned away and I went back inside. And well, I had a lot of damage in my heart. They put a stent in, but it took a year. They weren't sure I was going to recover from it. I have, but it was had a lot of damage, and they expected me to die. And when my son had leaned into me the urgent care doc and I knew all the nurses. This is a small town. I knew everybody there and all the nurses, and they're all concerned. Half of them had been church members and some of them had been in the youth group. And so they were all, and the doc had told my son to say goodbye to me because I was going to die on the way. And so I'm in my hospital bed, and the next day, the Amazon releases my book a month early, and 10 weeks later, I was in New York on a talk show, on a morning show, and I was freaked a little bit because the first near-death experience, I came back a completely different person. I was transformed in a moment. I am not the same guy, and again this happens, and I decided as a result of this second time, and the fact that I'd been on I had this TV show for 15 years, in Maine and New Hampshire. Every day I was on TV, and a devotional TV, like Before the Morning Weather. It's a long story, but a 91-year-old organization. Anyway, so my show got canceled. So I'm in my hospital bed. In January, a new corporate ownership comes in and buys the station. My show gets canceled. They give me a year and a half to get out. It takes me a year to recover from my heart attack. So we run reruns for a whole year, and I've got 6 months to figure out what I'm going to do next. And after this thing closed, I dove deeper inside myself again, and I took a look around and decided that the best use of the rest of my life, which is limited, is to try to continue the work that I began 40 years ago in a new way. And the way that I really want to do it, that I've always wanted to do it, that I've been trying to do this all the way along, is to embody the presence itself. Not because it's mine, not because it's me, but because it's you, because it's everybody, everywhere, all the time. I know this. I am this thing. And I want to, as much as I possibly can, bring as much hope to the world as I'm able to by showing you your eternal self, and that love itself never ends. Love is unending. It's it's the only it's the fabric of the universe. It's the fabric of the divine. It's the fabric of your children. It's the fabric that connects you. It's what everything is made of. And if you want to find strength, I'll put it this way: the only way that I found strength in my life I had suicidal ideation for, I don't know, a decade after I died, because I was completely alone in the world. I knew nobody like me. I moved through the world like an alien, like I was an implant inside this body, and all of my peers were the dead mystics. But inside of every single person that I could see, I could see the light inside everybody all the time. And it's not just with my eyes, it's with my body. My being sees this. My hands. You ever see the painting with the eyeball in the hand? That's what my hands are like. My hands are like, let me say this, that when I was dead, my consciousness was my thinking, was my sensory perceptions. I didn't have a brain. I didn't have fingertips and neurons. I mean, pardon me, nerves. I didn't have any neurons either. I didn't have a body at all. I was an orb of consciousness in the state of blissful being, completely connected and beloved. And I saw that everybody's beloved and connected. I saw every single person on earth beloved and connected in the core of their being, and that no one is lost because of the goodness that is in the presence of every single birthed person. And so now I just want to help people see it inside themselves. And if you can taste it inside yourself and aim yourself at it, you gather the light that emanates from everywhere. If you've had a child come visit you after they've died, that's not just your child who's coming to visit you. It's the presence of the divine manifest to you in your child. Because your child is both the divine and him or herself, just like you are, just like I am. Only with the visitation like that, there's less of a veil and more of a purity, which is why it's a download of communication and not words. The words, if they're spoken, they carry so much more than words ever can in this world. The idea, I grieve. I want to be clear. I grieve for people. You know, when you go to a funeral, why everyone cries? Because every time we gather in funerals and memorial services, we all bring all the grief that we've ever carried in our lives. And so there's this communal gathering of grief sharing, which lessens the burden of the immediately grieved in this great sharing of human experience. And the only way that I find that I'm able to grieve, not just for the losses in my life of the people that I love, but also for the loss of the divine being itself, is by diving inside. And I find that when I dive inside, I'm more sensitive to what the Holy wants to show me rather than what I seek for myself. And I find that the strength that I gain from that enables me to face lots of tragedies. Most recently, my cousin, a year ago now, took his life in a most brutal way. And it was a shocking loss. But even in the midst of this happy-go-lucky guy, who everyone said was the most handsome man they'd ever met, he is at peace. Even though it hurt me, I know he's no longer suffering. I know he's no longer suffering because I've been there. And the deeper I go inside myself, the more I'm connected to the holy, the truer that becomes. It's not that it's less true. It's not that it's not true. It's that the intensity of the truth of it continues to grow as the connection to the holy grows. So I'm going to stop here because I've been talking for a while and I want to see if there are questions, and I want to leave space for people to ask questions if you want to ask questions. So
That's wonderful. Yes, there are questions. And Peter, that was beautiful. And I think that one of the main things that parents, especially in this meeting, would like you to maybe talk about, if you have a way of explaining, is why some people return and some people don't. Is that something that you, having this experience, can explain to us and tell us why this is that you obviously you had a lot of reasons to come back. I think all of our kids have
of course,
of reasons as well. So maybe you could address that just
I will try.
in the mysticism that you also embody. Oh my goodness, everything that you're talking about is so amazing. But if you could talk to us about that, that would be wonderful.
I know I'm not quite an anomaly because I've met a couple other people who have had a choice to come back. But I'd like to start by saying that ultimately I won't have that choice. I will not be able to come back. I mean, nobody will. Everybody goes. And why do some people get to, why did I get this choice? I don't know why, except for that I don't know. I can tell you that I made the wrong choice. I felt that for 20 years I made the wrong choice. I wanted, that's why I prayed to go home every day. Because why, if your foot is on fire and there's a bucket of ice water and you stick your foot in the ice water and it feels so much better, why would you put it back in the fire again if you had that choice? It's that kind of difference. And I know that on this side, it's suffering and grief. But I understand on the other side, there's only bliss and beauty. And if I had understood the deal that I was making, I might not have made it. I've made peace with that. It's taken me my lifetime to do that. Make peace with it. Some people's lives are just over. Let me talk about it this way. There were timelines, and the timeline of my death that went in the world without me went one way, and the timeline with me coming back went another way. Maybe there's something in this timeline that I chose, was allowed to choose, that's not even me. It has nothing to do with me. Some interaction somewhere along the way, I'm some chess move in some three-dimensional chess game that something else needed to happen. Maybe that's it. But it's really hard from this side. Life is this short. That's why I came back. If I had to come back for eternity here, I would not have wanted to. And so once you're on the other side, that's clear. And they know that ultimately you'll be okay. I've never been here in this life to convert anybody. I'm not really trying to convince logically or through belief systems or any of that other stuff. No doctrine, no dogma. That's not my job. Because you're going to find out for yourself that they really still love you. But maybe their timeline was over. You know, I once had this, I lived on this island, and there was a palm reader on the island, and she looked at my palm and she said, "You got 3 deaths on your hand. You die, that's a dead point. That's a dead point, and then there's other dead point. Maybe it's my fate. I don't. Maybe my soul journey involved me coming back, and maybe their soul journey did not. And I wish I had a better explanation than that. But
That's
there's the pardon.
that's wonderful. I was just going to say, so many people are agreeing with what you're saying, but they also just want to maybe suggest soul planning. Is that something that you believe in, the soul plans
I,
and
I
exit plans and things like that?
well, I saw the choices. As- I'll tell you when I was coming back from my first death, and I said to God, I choose to live my life, and God said, you won't live your life, and sent me back. I had, I had a command spoken inside me, and it said, choose. And in front of me were 1,000,000 doors. And all of these doors are like in a big circle. And in the middle of the circle was a radiant door of pure light. And then there were all these other doors that were lesser light all the way out, always white light. And 1,000,000 doors in this big circle. And the voice said, choose. And I chose. I thought, in an instant of my thinking, I thought, I want to be a writer. I want to be a bohemian. I want to. and my choice was made, and I want the light, and I didn't go into the pure, I went off to the side. And what I saw was this: they were all probabilities. Every one of those doors were probable lives I could have lived. And I chose this one particular door, but this door of all probabilities of contained all of the possible choices that I would make in life. And I have this, I had some free agency, some willpower, some will. And when I was dead, I got to choose. I get to choose in my daily living which choice I'm going to make. And I live my daily existence is this. I live a moment, I see a moment ahead of my life all day long. I don't see the future. I don't see your future. I see my future just before it happens. So it's all, I live with this feeling of, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. But that's not the full feeling, because I made a choice a moment ago that I could have made the other choice. All of these probabilities exist in the door that I chose had all of the probabilities by hundreds of millions of multiples that intersected all these other doors, these other hallways, and all of them were possible. So is it a life? Is it my soul plan? All of them were my potential soul plans. And that my daily living experience is the living experience of potentiality become physicality because I'm making these choices. And so I'm sort of co-creating my existence here out of all of these probabilities. And, but then, I got 3 deaths on my hand. And I was born, I have one birthmark. It's a heart. I have a heart on my face, a little teeny tiny heart. I mean, it's like a little heart. And it's like kind of weird stuff. I don't know. I know that souls evolve, that life on earth evolves, but my next evolution is my death. And once I die, I don't stop evolving. I continue to evolve. And evolution has multiple factors that impinge upon it on the earth that cause it and goes one direction, doesn't go another direction. That continues on in death. Uh, Subsequent to my near-death experience, I've had other mystical experiences where I've been taken up into heaven again, not by choice and not by will, but by grace. And I know I have a purpose here, but my real true purpose is the holy divine. And if my soul has a plan, that's what the plan is. The plan is to get back to the oneness of being. It's not about earth life. People are like, well, why don't you look at your reincarnations? Well, I could do that, but why? For me, they're not me. They're like skin bags that like I'm wearing now. I'm this other thing. My soul plan is to evolve in the light. That's what my plan is. And I think that that's the plan of every soul. It's just on earth, we all live under this veil of forgetfulness, which is what a practice of contemplation, some sort of prayer life, whatever that is for you, qigong or tai chi, the that connects you with that thing. And your children, they are connected with that thing now. And that divine presence in which they live can allow them to both visit you and continue on deeper into the light. And if they reincarnate into another body to learn whatever they need to learn, that's part of their soul plan too. But all of this has to do with will.
our will and our choices, here and now. And
Can I just,
yeah.
yes, can I just add that Lavon is saying, and I know she's a good friend of yours.
Hey,
Maybe
Lavon. I see you, Lavon.
she's here, but she's saying that maybe the reason that you came back is to create heaven within your physicality in partnership with your infinite spirit and awareness and oneness.
I'll go with that.
That's beautiful. And
Beautiful.
I think that, I mean, what you have to do here, you have a lot more work to do. I think that one thing that I've heard Irene say about, that someone said about Carly, and I think it was beautiful, is that she got everything that she needed to get done in her 21 years, and then, or excuse me, 26 years, and she graduated after that. And so I think that that's something that you have this incredible gift of explaining all of what you've lived to all of us, and explaining what it's like over there. And it's important for us to be able to hear this. And I also just wanted to say there are other things that people are talking about. Basha is saying, my son said the same thing that you were saying to her from the other side. He said, Mom, you get to choose pain or love. And she was baffled at first, but now she sees that it has been the greatest gift to hear that from her son, which is really beautiful. So obviously you're living in love, and it really is beautiful. Anyway, I interrupted you. I didn't want to interrupt, but I did want to let you know that people are all agreeing with what you've said. And Augusta is saying, I've always felt the same, not interested in the other lifetimes I've had, which is what you were saying, that you didn't care about the other things because you've evolved to the point that you're at right now.
And I want to thank Lavon for saying what she said, because that's been my journey ever since. But I think that's everyone's journey. And maybe you don't live a deep life of contemplation in the world, but maybe you live a deep life of love for your child in the world. And since love is the commodity of heaven, it's treasure. And what you just said was, you could choose love or suffering. You can't. Grief is love's twin, and you can't escape grief, but you can choose love in grief instead of choosing bitterness and suffering. Because one of the things about the spiritual life is that the spiritual life deepens in suffering, but you have to choose it. You have to pursue it, like you all are. You are pursuing this because you've suffered. And I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but have you ever heard of the gift of cancer? Did I mention that last time? So a lot of people who have cancer talk about the gift of cancer, and the gift of cancer, of terminal cancer. The gift of terminal cancer is an understanding of beauty and mortality. And they often end up, and I've seen this a dozen times, they end up counseling the ones who will be left behind. And the gift of grief, the gift of suffering, is wisdom. That's the same thing that comes with cancer, can come with cancer, as wisdom. But wisdom is always hard won. It is not easy. It always comes from suffering. So there's that component too in a life plan, you know? My life plan just didn't involve me. My life plan involved the people around me, and the impact that my life or not life has on them. And I was talking to a woman recently who lost a child, and she's discovered her spirituality as a result. Didn't expect any of it, didn't want any of it. Maybe that was part of her child's life plan, was her, not just the kid and his life plan.
Amber is saying, and I think that what you're saying, it's true, but Amber is saying that her gift of grief is her spiritual life exploding at an accelerated clip. Amazing, which I think a lot of us have experienced since having our children transition. It's something that,
Hmm.
of course, we want to learn more and more. We want to be able to find out about all of these incredible experiences. And one of the questions that a lot of people have been asking in the chat box, and I know that for the first uh, for the first transition that you experienced, the first near-death experience, you didn't see any relatives. Did you see any relatives the second time, or was it just the angel that was greeting you?
Just the angel and just the angel.
So
Um,
when you were crossing over, you didn't see any of the people that you'd had who had
no,
transitioned.
no, I know that having attended many deaths in my life, I know that many people have, I've witnessed it, have relatives come to greet them. Most people do. Why, why am I different? I have no idea why it's different. I know that my near-death experience is a category of near-death experience. There are other people like me. I've had conversations with them, but we're a subset. Um, and I think that God doesn't give you what you want, God gives you what you need. And so because God always presents with compassion to where we are when we are. And so maybe some people need their relatives and maybe some people need an angel or maybe I mean I don't know, but I do know this, that God gives us what we need. And so I guess I didn't need to see my family. I I I may have said this last time, but when I was in the full presence of love, I didn't need anything else. There was nothing lacking in me, nothing lacking in me at all. It was all the greatest love I ever felt in my life times a billion zillion, and more. It was everybody's great love times a billion zillion. And so I wish I could say, oh yeah, my grandfather came and picked me up. That wouldn't be the truth.
Well, Amy is saying maybe the divine knew that you were coming back, so you weren't actually going to meet those relatives anyway. So that's also a possibility.
It's a possibility. Yep.
And Lavon is saying that her greatest growth and expansion came after Kiva's passing, which I think that all of us are feeling the same way. That that's exactly, for me, it was my shared death experience with Morgan that made me want to learn more and meet other people like me, just as you. I think that must have been very lonely for such a long time, to feel that you were the only. I guess you're still feeling lonely because the only people that you are like are no longer here, but you have met a
Ah,
whole tribe
but
of people. Yeah.
right, right,
Okay.
exactly. I have a new tribe. It's still all the old dead people from all around the world in the books, but it's also uh, all my NDE friends who I well, didn't have 5 years ago.
So it's just been within the last 5 years, you think, that people have started opening up about this, or is
I
just
think it's
you?
a little bit longer than that. It's maybe 10 years.
Mhm.
Some books trickled out 20 years ago. There was, maybe 30 years ago, one book, and then, or a little bit longer than that, and then trickle by trickle by trickle. But then 10 years ago, people like Eben Alexander published, and a couple other people published, and then I got talked into it, and a bunch of other people got talked into or decided to publish it, and now there's lots of books on it, and it's becoming there's this thing called Google Google Watch, and I'm not sure that's the right name, but it's a part of Google where you can see the most searched words. and it runs from 0 to 100. It doesn't tell you how many searches. It is if it's 100% interest. So I looked up the word mysticism in the United States today. It was 100%, and it
Wow.
was the only place with 100% on Earth. And which leads me to think that it's working.
Yeah.
The United States is a leader in this. We are in the forefront. Well, we're in the forefront of medical technology with life-saving techniques originally, but we're in the forefront of the conversation about mysticism, and I think that is where we should be. So I have hope. I definitely have hope.
Well, I just want to tell you some of the things that people are saying. Amy's saying Peter is intense. It feels like he's talking only to me, which I just love. I think that's wonderful. Linda's saying, when you were talking about the fact that you get what you need when you're transitioning on the other side to the other side, she says, I do believe that you get what you need when you're transitioning to the other side, which I think is really interesting. So all of us need to see our kids first thing. So that's exactly what we're going to do.
Yes.
But you didn't need that to see your grandfather, obviously.
I guess not.
But we
No.
will get what we need, and I am 100% sure of that. We all know that. And Allison is saying, thank you. Peter is so engaging to listen to. We are so grateful. Dixie is saying, thank you, Peter, for sharing your story with us. And thank you to us as well. For, let's see. And then let's see. I just want you to know that this is such a fascinating thing for me to hear you saying that obviously the mysticism that you're talking about demysticizes everything that Jesus had written or was written about him in the Bible, and that all of this actually stems from his experiences too as a near-death experiencer. And I love listening to you talk because it does hit home as you're speaking. It makes all of us feel very warm and loved, and at the same time want to know more. So it is exciting that we might be able to join you on Sundays to be in your not church.
See you there, maybe.
So hopefully that'll be possible. So you'll, it's on your YouTube channel. It's Peter Panagore, is that right?
Peter Panagore, and you can find all the links at peterpanagore.love.
Okay, that's wonderful. And I'm glad that Lavon was on here for you as well.
Yeah, good to see you. Picture.
Unfortunately, didn't see you the first time, didn't realize, and so she was. She says, "Keep breathing, everyone. Much love." So that's beautiful. But anyway, thank you so much for being here, and I hope that you will all explore his books as well. And there are going to be 2 more that are coming out. Do you know what the names of them are yet?
Both have working titles, and I can't. They change weekly. One's on mysticism. One's on mysticism, modern mysticism, and the other one is my new film.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, we can't wait. And we always ask everybody to unmute and say thank you and
Yes,
good evening.
you,
So
Thank you so much. What a wonderful evening.
thank you very much,
you.
Peter.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Be here.
Everybody, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Good night,
so
everyone.
much.
Everybody.